Hi, this is Erica. I get asked a lot what mindfulness has done for me in my life, like beyond the meditation piece of it, if it's had some sort of impact. And recently I've been thinking a lot about the impact it's had on my relationships. And in reflection of that, what I'm realizing is that it's had an enormous impact on the relationship with myself. I think that sounds kind of strange, and I'm the first one to note that, like, self-love or self-worth or any of those things, self-compassion, I've always kind of scoffed at. I don't know if that's because I didn't understand it, or if that's because I was afraid of it, or because I thought that I just had it. But the more that I've meditated, while that wasn't my intention to become more self-compassionate, more self-loving, or have more self-worth, but the more that I've meditated, the more I'm realizing that that's showing up in my life. Like I said, it's not the intention of that. I didn't set out to become more anything at all. But I'm noticing as I interact, well, with myself, like the way I talk to myself is much kinder than it used to be. I didn't do inner critic meditations, although now I do because now I know what that feels like. I just started meditating. Noticing my breath, noticing the sounds, noticing the sensations in my body. But what started happening was I started noticing the voice in my head and the thoughts, and they were critical and they were nasty. And when I started noticing that, I couldn't help but also notice that that was the way I interacted with other people. Whether it was being highly judgmental or highly critical or defensive. Like all those things showed up in my relationships because they were showing up in my head. Sometimes they call it like a double arrow, this idea that I was noticing that these thoughts came up and then I was judging the thoughts as they came up, which made me feel worse about myself. I know this doesn't really sound like some big business campaign for why you should meditate, but stick with me a little bit because it got better. Well, it got worse and then it got better. Really what started to happen was the way in which I talked to myself started to show up in my body. I would have these very strong physical sensations, like my body was rejecting the words that I was saying to myself. That's really the biggest change that started to happen internally. But then it started happening externally. I would say something about somebody or just be engaging in gossip or judging someone or critical. And I would feel this, I don't know, like tightness in my chest or feeling in my gut that just didn't feel right anymore. Where it started to impact me the most, though, was in my close relationships with family, with my friends, and recently as I started dating again. What started to really happen in those places was a willingness to open up, to be more honest, to be vulnerable, but to also set boundaries. I started to really trust my body's wisdom. That's really what begins to happen with meditation, at least in my experience, is that the wisdom shifts from simply cognitive in the brain to a wisdom and discernment in the body. It's a more, for me, honest way of interacting with people. And so my responses would show up as a tinge of this in my heart or a feeling in my stomach. And at first I thought, oh my gosh, how can I just live from that space? I've lived so long from analyzing, from figuring out. And believe me, I still call my best friends and we analyze the hell out of things. But when I really need to make a decision, it comes from a deeper spot in my heart, in my gut. And it's not always the easiest choices to make because there's that really well-practiced part of my brain that for years I lived from. But now, if you ask me what meditation has done for me, it's given me a more heartfelt, honest, and aligned way of interacting, not only with myself, but with other people. I think what makes it just a tinge challenging, though, for me, is that I feel like I have to defend myself or explain it because I might not have a logical reason for it. And it sounds a little cosmic to say, well, my stomach felt tight and my heart felt a little bit closed up, and so I knew that this wasn't the right pathway to take. It's things like that, though, that I know are, for me now at this phase of my life, the most honest way to live. I just trust the wisdom of my body. And my greatest hope is that through this practice, you'll start to trust the wisdom of your body as well. Because what I really know, more than I think I've ever known before, is that if we only live from the space in our head, it's a space often of pretty deep fear. Our mind can talk us into and out of 1,000 different things because it goes into that flight, fight, freeze kind of place. And there are 1,000 reasons why having flight, fight, freeze is brilliant, because it saves us when we're in real danger. But many times we're not in real danger anymore. We're just afraid of loving, afraid of opening up. And the practice of mindfulness meditation has given me the courage to love and to live a life that just feels really authentic. And I think that that's why I continue to teach and practice. Actually, it's turning into the reason that I do teach. A big part of what I love is exploring the places in my heart that have been closed. There's teachers that call meditation an excavation, right? Like seeing what gets in the way of being able to open our hearts up. I love being able to share the story of my heartache and my joys so that people can understand that it's about feeling everything. And when we can hold the capacity in our body to feel all of it, we have great joy and equally great sorrow. It's not about avoiding pain. It's about being able to, invite it to the table, hang out with it, and get to know it so that it doesn't have power over us. It sounds counterintuitive, like who invites pain over to the table? It's an old Rumi poem, basically. This idea that you invite in all of it so that you can get to know it. You don't have to know who Rumi is. I'll just point out that he's pretty damn smart, because the idea is that when we can sit with every fear-based emotion that we have, we can also feel an incredible amount of love. As I start in this phase of my life again, like I mentioned earlier with dating, you see these masks that I put on, that people put on. And I understand the need to hide a little bit. It's not about putting it all out on the table at first. But there is a piece that says, I'm human, this is what I've been through. And I'm human, and this is what I've been through. Not because that identifies or defines who we are, but it's because of who we are. It's not, though, who we have to continue to be. It doesn't have to be the label that we put on ourselves and carry that badge around. Mindfulness, moment by moment, can have those experiences, right? They show up, we look at them, we say, this is a little bit of why I am who I am, but this is also something that I'm looking at so that I can become a person who loves deeply and is willing to open up.